On this episode of Carnage, we got the parts to fix Dad's ute. So let's get it fixed and get it on the dyno. The last time we were working on Dad's ute, we put a new stall converter in, high stall converter from TCE. We put our shift kitted transmission into the car as well. I also changed the valve springs, which have had an unintended consequence. And that is the higher pressure of the new valve springs ended up breaking this adjuster in one of my rockers. But it wasn't just the higher pressure. It was the fact that we had a dud push rod. So, here is our normal push rod. You can see there, trend push rods, high quality, 7.65 inch and 0.08 inch wall thickness, okay? And it also has CL at the end. That's important. CL means clearance, and that means it is clearance at the end of the push rod. So instead of 180 degrees, it's 210 degrees. So when the rocker rocks down, it doesn't bind on the sidewall of the push rod. So here's the offending push rod. You can see trend 7.65, 080 wall, CL. Do you see any clearancing on the end of the push rod? No, there is not. It is a manufacturing error. That's right, it happens. And something we should have seen when I first assembled the engine, and of course this has done 4,000 plus Ks in the engine already. However, at the lower spring pressure of the factory Edelbrock springs, it wasn't a problem. Now that we've upped the spring pressure, because we were ending up with valve bounce on the top end of the rev range, the extra spring pressure has made it a problem now. And obviously, was it one trip around the block, a broken adjuster, and only on that one push rod. So now we have a replacement push rod. So there's the two push rods from that offending cylinder. Both are clearanced. So now it should not cause us a problem. So it should be pretty easy to just throw these in, throw the new adjuster in the rocker and reset the lash on those rockers. So it needs preload because it's not a solid cam, it's a hydraulic cam. So we use about 3/4 of a turn of preload. So we'll do that, get it on the car, and get that part fixed. I also bought these Moroso gaskets. I don't know if they're any good, but they reckon they are, leak proof basically. So we have all sorts of dramas with our rocker cover gaskets, keeping them sealed. So hopefully these will help that situation. I can only hope. But anyway, this shouldn't take too long. Let's get it done, and hopefully we can get this thing on the dyno. Make some more horsepower before we head to the track. Just shine the light down there and make sure they are actually seated correctly in the lifter, which they are. Okay, now for the rockers. So there is our broken adjuster, and thankfully comp cams sell replacements individually. So we've bought this from overseas. No one had it here locally, unfortunately, but they're only about 20 bucks. So pretty simple deal. Okay, now there's our rocker. So adjuster goes in the rocker first. It has to go from underneath, which is why we have to pull them off and not do it in the car. So for those of you that don't usually play with Chrysler V8s, you may have noticed these rockers all run on a common shaft. And anyone who's dealt with performance V8s will know shaft mounted rockers are better than pedestal mounted. And this is the way Chrysler designed pretty much all their classic V8s from the get-go. So Hemis, big blocks, small blocks, they all run a shaft mounted rocker. And it's a very stable design. So, you know, it can't go that way at all. Like a pedestal rocker, you know, has a little bit of sideways movement. Shaft mounted doesn't do that. They only go one way. So it's a good solid design, lasts a long time. You rarely have any failures with it. So yeah, I really dig them. It was one of the things that attracted me to Chrysler V8s way back in the day. So yeah, and obviously with these Comp Cam Ultra rockers, this one's even better. So it's got some good gear in it, this engine, gotta say. All right, let's get these torqued up. Okay, so top dead center. I hope on the firing stroke. Let's check that with a dizzy. So what we're going to do is readjust all the rockers. I mean, it's done, what, 4,000 or 5,000 Ks, so probably a good time just to check and yeah, reset them up to the right preload. Make sure nothing's really moved. Yeah, we'll do them all, seal it back up, fire up. So now it's time to adjust our rockers. I've downloaded this little cheat sheet off the interwebs. And we're going to start with the intake valve of cylinder 2. So I've already loosened that off. So we just twist our push rod back and forth and then just till you feel the adjuster bite onto it. Alright, so about there. So we want to give it 3/4 of a turn preload. So based off that, it'll have to go around to there. And there we have it. Okay, just make sure it's nice and tight. Okay, all right. Then exhaust of number 8 up the back here. That's going to be fun. Right, we are finally done with that long and drawn out process of adjusting all the rockers. God, I hate that. So now we'll get our little gaskets and give them a try. All right. There we go. Alright, leads are on, rocker covers down. It should be right to go. I guess, let's hit the key, see what happens. Alright, let's try this. Okay. It's all plugged in. Got fuel. Well, I don't know what's wrong with it. We've given everything a bit of a wiggle. Let's give it another try. See if that helps. Loose connection or something, I don't know. Wow. good does that sound? Wow, that sounds glorious. Obviously there's some spilt oil on the headers, so we might just back her out and fire it up outside, burn that off, and maybe take it for a little test drive. But yeah, it runs again and sounds fantastic. And we're back at max performance. The ute is ready to go on the dyno, so we need to make some adjustments to the Dizzy, see where it likes it best for maximum horsepower. Now, when we're talking about horsepower, we're not talking about chasing, you know, massive power figures. We're looking at the most power this combo can make. So the converter will sap some power out of it, even though the converter makes it so much quicker on the street. The big tyres on the back will hurt the horsepower. However, you know, the big tyres make it much nicer to drive on the road. At the track, we'll put shorter tyres, stickier tyres, and it'll go much better. So this is all about making the most power out of this combo we can. Remember, it's a street car. This is, you know, Dad's ute. I'm not about, you know, chasing maximum horsepower. It's a good street car. I've been driving it to home and back the last couple of days. It's doing that pretty well. It's a good unit. We just want to know that we're making the most power out of it that we can. So Zane's given me the keys to the dyno. I'm going to be running the ute on the dyno. This is going to be interesting. So what we can see on the dyno is the air fuel is fine, it's perfect. We're just trying different ignition timings, you know, what works, what doesn't. So we try a bit of advance, see where that goes, try a bit of retard, see where that goes. To be honest, there doesn't seem to be a lot of difference in it, so I'd rather run it slightly retarded, so, you know, no chance of pinging or anything. We'll see how we go with that. I've just retarded it again. We'll see what power that comes up with. If it's about the same, I think we'll just run with it. Ultimately, the power figure's not important. It's about how the car runs. Didn't like that. Try that.
I guess we know what it likes, but to get that I've got to put too much initial in it, so I need to make some advanced adjustments. Just with the, there's a little bush in the dizzy, I've got to adjust that so I can run less initial and more total. But to do that, it needs to be a little bit cooler. Right, so in the dizzy, under the rotor cap, so you take the rotor cap out, and under the advanced weights, there are some advanced bushes. So there's a little nut under there, it's like a 7mm. It's a pain in the balls to get to, however, it's kind of necessary. And if you change the advanced bushing, it changes the amount of total, well, amount of advance in the distributor. So you have initial advance, so whatever you put in with your timing lights, you know, say 10 degrees, 12 degrees, whatever. At the moment I've got set at 15. And 15 is getting us to an amount, a total advance of probably 33 or something like that. It probably wants more total advance, all right? However, to get more total advance, I've got to wind up the initial, and it doesn't like a lot of initial. It's just the way it is. So I want a setup that's going to have, say, 10 to 12 degrees initial, but maybe 25 degrees extra in the dizzy to give me like 36, 37 degrees total. So that's where these bushes come into it. At the moment I've got this black bush, so that gives us I think about 20 degrees in the dizzy. So at the moment, you know, we're at 35-ish. If I go to purple, that'll give us less in the dizzy. If I go smaller, it'll give us more in the dizzy, but it means I can run less initial. So what I'm going to have to do is pop the dizzy cap off, pop the rotor button off, take out the bush that's in there and put in one of these smaller bushes and basically give it more timing. You don't really need to take the rotor cap off, the rotor button, but it does make it easier. So you kind of want it on this side because it's away from the pickup and it's just easier to get to. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Let's try you. So this is your rotor button, and if you look on their sides here, it has a little circle and a little square, and that tells you which way it goes back on the distributor, because obviously you need it pointing the direct right way. And if you have a look on the dizzy, you'll see there is a square on this side and a circle on this side. I don't know if you can really see it from that side, but yeah, little square there, little circle there, which means it goes that way. Well, it seemed to like that. Right, well, I think that's what we're going to get out of it. As I said, the final figure, not really important. I mean, yes, it makes less than it did before, but it has a converter in it now. It has super tall tyres on the rear, so it's going to make less power. Plus, they call this dyno the heartbreaker because it reads low with everything. Apparently, they had a dyno day here, and no one went away happy because yeah, they all made less power than they thought because this dyno, for whatever reason, just seems to run a little bit lower than most. However, that's pretty good power. I think the car should run good numbers. So from here, I reckon, let's take it to the track. Let's see what it runs down the quarter, but you're going to see that on a future episode of Carnage.